All right. Welcome back to the Clubhouse 54 podcast. I'm Michael Little. To my right, Tyler Wax. To his right, Drew Lockhart. Welcome back, all. Today, we have a special guest with us. I know on the last podcast, we said we were going to talk to someone that was in the business and then got out of golf. But this guest here, he was not in the business and got into golf. And he's someone that I got to know a lot over the last few weeks here. And it's been my absolute pleasure to get to know him more. We actually somewhat grew up in the same exact town. We have ties together from back in our childhood days, and we didn't know it until a few weeks ago. So it was great to learn more about that. And we want to welcome Justin Minisci. He is the director of sales of Edel Golf. Justin, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, it's kind of a small world. When you initially reached out and you asked about my last name, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to get. But it turns out I spent a lot of holidays right down the street from where you grew up, and we might have ridden some bikes together. Who knows?
I'm sure we have. I'm sure we skipped rocks together for sure.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're from North Wales and you know Minisci, yes, he is related to the Miniscis. Yes.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So Justin, thanks for being on. We just like to hear your story and a little bit of background, how you got involved with golf. Clearly you and I have similar childhood experiences, and just kind of walk us through that and let us know how you became the director of sales at Edel Golf.
Yeah, will do. Yeah, it's quite an interesting journey for me. Not a straight path by any means. Kind of like you, I grew up, parents, hard workers, they're always working 2-3 jobs a piece, make ends meet, making sure we had everything we needed. And so I grew up really watching the example of just hard work. And that kind of set me on my path where once I got done high school, I pursued baseball. I was always into golf, but when we were younger, golf really wasn't a popular kids sport. So baseball, basketball, they kind of took center stage for me. And then once I went to college, I studied sport management, but unlike some people, I wasn't in a position where I could get into sports right away or do internships because I had to work. I had to get a job and pay for student loans while I went to school. I ended up paying for half of my school while I went by working 1 to 2 jobs, depending on which year we're talking. So taking an internship for no money wasn't an option. I just wasn't in that position. So I kind of had to put that on hold, even though I studied sport management. And once I graduated, I ended up moving back home to the Phoenixville area, which you're familiar with. And I ended up getting into the bar business for a short period of time, realizing that really wasn't my speed. And then ended up moving down here to Maryland, which is where I still live, and got into personal training, which I loved. It was kind of in sports, so I enjoyed that. I trained a lot of athletes, which made me feel right at home. But from that point, I ended up meeting a few people that were in the medical industry. And my life, I was trying to settle down a little bit more. The life of a trainer is not, maybe I would say, cohesive to a balance in your life because of your hours. You're working 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. You might go home, get things done, and you're back in the gym from 4 till 10. Doesn't leave a whole lot of time for a personal life or relationships, things like that.
That's sort of like a golf pro. Sorry to interrupt you. It's sort of like a golf pro.
Yeah, no, please feel free to interrupt rather than me run my mouth constantly. By all means.
Of course.
Yes. So yeah, very similar to a golf pro. It's, a lot of weekends. You're basically, you need to be available when other people are available after their work hours or on their weekends. So I did that for a few years, and just through networking, one of my clients ended up we went out and we started playing golf. And to be honest, from the time I started college until I would say maybe 2007, there was about 10 years where I didn't really play much golf. And to be honest, I wasn't in a position where I had time, and I didn't have the money to play because golf's expensive. We all know that, between clubs and getting on a course, it's a lot. So in any case, I ended up joining up with one of my clients. We would go out and we'd start playing golf, and he introduced me to kind of some of his network, and they worked in the medical field. And one of them, his name was John. He's a great guy, great mentor for me a lot of years. He just basically presented me with an opportunity to say, hey, if you want to get out of this, I'd like you to come work for my company and in the sales world, and sell specifically sleep apnea. So a lot of people are familiar with what that is. I don't know if you guys do. You're still young, right?
Young enough.
Yeah. So long story short, I did that for about 10 years. But during that time is when golf really got injected into my life at a very different level. So I started to become a lot more engaged in golf. I started to play a lot more. I ended up joining a club down here, which, that was probably the best thing I've ever done, because, you're going to spend that money every month. So you kind of feel obligated to make sure you get out there and you get your money's worth. So
What's the name of that club that you joined?
Eagles Nest Country Club. It's down here in Phoenix, Maryland.
Nice.
So yeah, great club. You have to come down and play sometime.
And the relationships that you build when you join a club. I mean, you find guys that you want to go out and play with.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's something that's kind of special.
It really is. My favorite part about being at a club is, you find your kind of your crew, your guys to play with on the weekends. And for me, I love practice. I always have. I love the process of things. So I love being able to go out on a golf course and actually practice out there instead of just on a range. That's a huge thing for me. And, if you only have an hour of free, your free time, I'll jump in a cart, I'll play 5 holes and get out of there. You can't really do that if you're paying a 18-hole greens fee. You're not going to play 5 holes and roll,
Exactly. And as a golf pro, there are things that we do as well. I mean, I would assume your handicap's pretty low based on that right there, but the awareness of your game and the awareness of how to practice and, what you need to get better and improve.
Yeah, I'm a scratch player, give or take a few strokes depending on the time of year and the year itself, or if I'm battling injuries. I'm getting old, whether the knee's hurting or the elbow. But so for me, I really got back into golf in a big way, and I wanted to update my bag. I had older clubs. This was probably 2007 and probably around 2007. And I mean, I was still playing the Callaway Biggest, Big Bertha. I mean, my clubs, I was playing the Titleist 962s. It was an old, outdated bag. And I started to try to, all right, well, what am I going to buy? What do I need? So I joined a couple of the online golf forums, Golf WRX being the big one that I joined. And I just went down the rabbit hole to try to figure out what I needed. And at this time, fitting studios weren't as prominent yet. They didn't really take hold like they are now. So you didn't have a ton of options.
Yeah. What did it take to join Golf WRX to get on the blog and start blogging and doing that for them?
Well, I mean, first thing I did is just joined up and I just read. I read and read and read, and I asked a lot of questions. And I'm somebody that likes to go down the rabbit hole, and I do a lot of research. I've always been that way. So I got the lay of the land pretty quickly, and I started to just do reviews on things that I tried out. And people really liked the reviews because the feedback I got was, we like that you're reviewing this equipment, not if it's necessarily a good fit for you, but who you think it's a good fit for. I just wanted to say, well, this is a great driver if you're looking for higher launch and higher spin. This is your stick. Wasn't a great fit for me, but this is the type of player who I think it would benefit. I didn't rag on anybody. I didn't, say it was junk, because, there's a lot of great equipment manufacturers out there, whether you're talking Edel, who I work for, or whether you're talking Callaway or Titleist. Everybody makes great clubs. So it's not really of whether it works or not per se. It's more about who it works for, who's the right fit for that product.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically from that point, I just got a lot of really good feedback. And then all of a sudden manufacturers like a Callaway, Mizuno, TaylorMade, everybody, they would reach out to Golf WRX and they would say, hey, could we send this guy some gear for him to do a review? We like his style. And that's just kind of how it started. Like, they just started reaching out to them, and then they would reach out to me and say, hey, they're willing to send you a set of irons, or they're willing to send you the new driver. And honestly, there were some products that I turned down simply because I knew it wasn't a good fit for me. And I said, you're better off choosing somebody that would be there's a better chance that would fit them. And I think they also liked that I just didn't take something because it was free. I actually I turned some things down. So
It's not like the golf raiders, where they become golf raiders just so they can play all these different golf courses, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not hating on that.
No, not at all. There's nothing wrong with it at all. If I wasn't a golf pro, I'd do the same thing.
Exactly.
So what did Wilson say when you turned them down?
I was never approached by Wilson. They're one of the few companies. They never reached out. Maybe they were gearing up for driver versus driver or something like that. I'm not sure. So that's kind of how I started doing some blogging and writing reviews and doing some articles. And in 2012 is when it really changed for me, and something that changed my life. And Callaway, great company, reached out to Golf WRX and said, we want to create kind of a fantasy trip for 5 or 6 guys, and we want to fly them out. We want to show them the R&D department. We want to show them, the Eli Callaway Performance Center. We want to treat them like tour players for 3 days. And we're going to play at La Costa. We're going to fit them for a complete bag. It was an amazing opportunity, and I was one of the people chosen. So I ended up going on that trip. And when I landed in Carlsbad, first thing we did was we checked in the hotel. We went out to dinner with the guys, Chip Brewer included, which super nice guy. That was right when he started there. And he's a Philly guy. So we had a lot to talk about. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Now go Doc Rivers. Make it happen. So
Drew's from Tennessee, so he's not a Birds guy.
You can't say go Birds after they just got beat. Like, come on, let's move on. It's on to the next year. Let's go.
He's just a hater. Don't worry about him.
Sour grapes over there.
I mean, he's just a hater.
It's just a peach high noon.
I got it. All right. Well, with that said, go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. So the next day we ended up, we went out to the Eli Callaway Performance Center. We got to hit all these new shiny toys, all the stuff that wasn't released yet because this was in December. And I remember the date, and I always will, because it was 12/12/12. So hard to forget that. Yep. But the first thing we did was go into Performance Center, and they're talking to us, showing us where they test putters and all this other stuff. And who comes in the door to pick up a couple dozen balls but Phil Mickelson? So it was just just wild. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, he came and shook everybody's hand, and in the lobby they had staff bags for all of us with our names on them. And he was kind of surprised. He didn't expect to see a bunch of maniacs sitting there, a bunch of golf geeks. And we just started peppering him with questions, and he was nice about it. He stayed for about 5 minutes, and then he had to get out of there for a tea time. But
did he have shorts on?
He did. He did have shorts on. Yeah.
Those calves, all right.
You know what? They weren't as developed then. That was later. Yeah.
Shots fired.
Man.
Shots fired. That's right.
That's not only did you meet Phil Mickelson, but not many people get to see his calves on top of that in person. So
You're right. You're right.
that's
I
a
mean,
double
that
win.
was, yeah, I mean, that my life was complete at that point. It
Yeah,
really
I would
was.
say so. I would
I
say
mean,
so.
absolutely.
Big calf guy. Keep going.
Big calf guy. But he did throw me a dozen of his prototype balls. He took them out of the sleeve and started firing them off to everybody. So he was really gracious. He was cool. So we did the whole Eli Callaway Performance Center thing. They took us up to the corporate building, which is, I don't know, maybe a half mile away. We got to see the marketing department. We got to see the R&D department, the ball testing, cannons. I mean, we got to sit in the room where they test the balls, and they were firing them past us at like 190 miles an hour.
Wow.
Probably shouldn't say that because they might get in trouble, but you know, it was fine. So really what that experience gave me was, one, I made some lifelong friends with the guys I went out there with, which, by the way, from 2012 on, there's not a day that's gone by where we haven't talked in a group text. We became really close. Yeah, really cool. But for me, it gave me my first glimpse into what it was like to work at a sports company, especially golf, because golf was always a huge passion for me. And it was like Disney World. It was the first time, again, that I've seen something like this. And not that I didn't think that these jobs were real, but when you grow up and you don't actually see them, and there's not like there's a bunch of sports companies where we grew up,
Yeah.
you know, it seems very out of reach. It seems unobtainable. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, I know what I need to do now. I know where I should be. I know where I need to get a job. I need to work in golf because this is amazing. And that changed my mindset. I mean, I'm talking a complete 180 from, hey, let me try to find the best job that gives me the best paycheck, to pursuing my passion and earning a living doing that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
It's amazing how one experience like that, can really change you, the way that you're looking at it, forever. And, thank you to Callaway Golf, right?
absolutely. I'll always be grateful to them. And, you know, the guy that was heading up their marketing department and who really put the trip together, his name is Harry Arnett. He's now the co-owner with Mark Wahlberg over at Municipal Clothing Company. And Harry came from TaylorMade, I believe. He was big in marketing over there. But his idea was, hey, let's put on a trip and kind of do like a fantasy camp for golf geeks. And it was awesome. And I stayed in.
Do that trip today?
No, they did it 2 more times. It didn't go as well. Yeah.
Somebody like me got involved somehow.
Yeah, probably a bunch of Tennessee guys. Absolutely.
So I've got a question for you. So from that meeting and that trip, how long was it before you were like, I'm doing this now, like, and this is the direction that I'm heading? Was it, was it immediately? Did you, have to sit on it for 6 months, or?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. So after I got home from that trip, I was just, my head was spinning, and I'm like, I have to go after this. So another year went by, and again, I started the pursuit of that, right? I stayed in touch. First and foremost, I stayed in touch with the guys from Callaway and built some really good friendships that I still have today. So those were my first contact points. And I made sure that, the first thing I did is I went home and I made a bunch of T-shirts just to say thank you. And I sent them out there to those guys, just to kind of commemorate the trip and say, hey, I appreciate what you guys did. It meant a lot to me. And, just thank you. But a year later, again, stayed in touch with those guys and I started looking around at who was hiring and which companies were out there. Callaway reached out to me again, and they said, hey, and this time it was only me. they said, we're shooting our commercials for the following year, which was the 13-14 product. Yeah. So they said, we're going to do it out in Vegas. We want to invite you out here to write about behind the scenes of how we shoot commercials. We're going to have all the PGA Tour guys out here, and you can just have free reign to do whatever you want. And we'll put you up. We'll fly you out in Vegas and all that. And of course, I said yes. So basically, I got out there again with these guys, and the first question I asked them was, well, why did you choose me versus anybody else? And they said, well, we just thought you could handle yourself around the tour players and not be like a fanboy. So I respected that. So
that had to be cool to hear.
Did they actually use the word fanboy?
Yes. Yeah. They're like, we just want to make sure that you don't lose your mind and be a complete fanboy out with these tour players. And I said, I understand. I'm not going to do that. I'm not that guy.
Shout out to Callaway.
It's so true, though. I mean,
It
you
is.
see it all the time. It's so true.
Well, when you're around these tour players, I mean, again, there's no security, there's no restrictions. You know, I'm eating lunch with Gary Woodland and Alvaro Quiros and Phil Mickelson, and I'm throwing the football around with Mickelson and running routes in the desert. I mean, it was a wild scene, but it was, again, to me, it just felt like all the stars are aligning and I'm on the right path. That's really what it meant to me was you should be in this business. This is meant for you. And that was just, to say that was surreal would be an understatement. I mean, I'm in Vegas. I'm hanging out with tour players. I was in an Odyssey commercial with Gary Woodland, although it never made the air. They got me in there as his caddy. I mean, it was wild, and he told me some great stories about him and Colton Oast, which I'm not going to get into. But it was funny to say the least, and he had to switch hotels because of it. I'll just leave it at that.
We need the dirt.
Yeah, Gary Woodland's a bro.
Come on, that's too much of a teaser.
It's inside the stories.
We can edit it out.
Right? Just make up a lie here. Come on.
We all know the rules. We all know the rules. And what happens inside the rope stays inside the rope. So it's one of those rules.
That's right. That's right.
I thought it was what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
It's both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys offline. But so that was an amazing experience. And again, it just reinforced that I was on the right path and that this was absolutely something I had to get into. So I went back to, again, I'm working in the medical world this whole time. And for the next 9 years, I spent trying to get into the golf world. I went to probably 4 to 5 PGA shows on my own dime just to go down and reconnect with people that I met and to build new relationships and network. I found different ways to get into the show, whether I was a guest of the pro at my club, whether Callaway got me involved because they got me passes one year because when they did invited me for the commercial shoot, I also did some content for them, video content. And they actually were playing some of my video content up on their big screens at their booth. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's great.
It's awesome.
It was wild. So for 9 years, any opportunity that I got that made sense logistically for me and my family, I went after. And I kept getting rejected over and over and over. And the response I got all the time was, well, yeah, you got sales experience, but not in golf. And nobody really seemed to want to take on someone that was green in the golf industry. They just wanted somebody that already had the experience and they could just do a plug and play. And I wasn't that person. So during that time, I kind of got my toe in the game by starting a build shop, which I still have here. So I started doing work for players all over the country, whether it's building irons, drivers, hot melt work. So that was another way that I networked during that period of time. So the last few, probably in 2000 and I'd say 2017, 18, somewhere around there, there were some Callaway opportunities that came up in my area. Again, I stayed in touch with those guys, Harry Arnett specifically. And he was great. He always would hook me up with the sales manager for the area. He got me some interviews. But again, I didn't have the golf experience, so they didn't want to put me in this territory. But they were willing to start me out in what they considered a C-level territory. Problem was, C-level territory was in the middle of nowhere and wasn't going to pay me what I needed to with, kids and a wife. And especially it wasn't going to convince my wife to move across the country somewhere, for a job that pays me half as much as what I was making. That was not a hill I was going to die on.
You didn't want to live in Texarkana, Arkansas? I mean, come on.
It was actually Tennessee. It was
there.
Tennessee, but I didn't want to move there. So, but
oh, come on, man! I was just starting to get to like you.
Sorry, Drew. But yeah, it was places like that where they're just a little bit out of the way, and it was hard to convince the wife and to move out in the middle of nowhere where we have no family support with young kids. That it just wasn't going to work. So, but I appreciated it. And then as of 2000, kind of during the pandemic, it shook my life up a lot. The previous medical company I was with ended up getting sold and kind of sold off. The owner ended up retiring after about 20 years in business. And with a couple other people, I started a small spinoff kind of that company. And that was about about 2 years before COVID. And then COVID hit, and it just, like a lot of businesses, unfortunately, it just creamed us. For us, we mainly dealt with sleep apnea, and patients, how they get diagnosed is they go to a hospital, typically a sleep lab. They spend the night, they do the study, and then they send that patient to us. Well, guess what? All the beds were tied up for COVID patients, no longer sleep patients, which presented a huge problem. So it shook up my life quite a bit. And during that period of time, we were trying to figure out how the company was going to move forward, which it made it through, fortunately. I happened to see a friend of mine that I met from that original Callaway trip in 2012. He joined Edel Golf as the VP. And they happened to put out on Twitter that, hey, we're going to have some sales opportunities coming up. If you're interested, apply, send your resume, all that stuff. First thing I did was I shot him a text message, and his name is Chris Koski. And I said, Chris, I'm really interested in this. I've been trying to get into this world. I want to throw my hat in the ring. And he said, yeah, absolutely. Send me your resume. So I did that. And I said, can I call you to just get some more information? And he said, absolutely. So Chris at the time in 2012, he kind of ran Odyssey. He ran irons for a while at Callaway, but then he moved to Odyssey with Austin Rollins, who's now Aussie's over at Titleist. So Chris just had a tremendous amount of experience in the business. And I knew that if he was a part of this, that there was something going on, because he's a super talented guy. And again, he's been a great mentor for me as well. So long story short, I called him. He filled me in on what Edel had going on and what plans they had for the future. And I was like, sign me up. I'm in 100%. And he said, great, I will. I'll put you in there, and I got your resume, and we'll take you through the process. So go ahead. Jay, do you have a question? Oh, I thought I heard something.
Well, I actually kind of do. Like, where does the name Edel come from? Like, how who came up with that, and where did that start?
So it's the last name of the founder, David Edel. He started the company just about 17 years ago, and he's a PGA instructor. He's an engineer. So that's where the name comes from. A lot of people ask us, well, how do you pronounce it? Is it Edel? Is it Edel? I've heard all sorts of pronunciations, but we always just say Edel.
Not like the singer.
Wait, did I pronounce it wrong when I introduced you?
No, I mean, you can say Edel or Edel. It's fine. Either way, it's fine. We accept it. We're fine. We talked about doing a commercial like what is it? The Carfax and Carfox or Aflac and all that. We
Got it.
talked about doing something about how people say our name. So
That'd be a good one. That'd be catchy.
Sometimes that confuses people more, though.
Yeah, that's what that actually came up. So I went through the process with Edel, and they said, "Hey, we want to offer you the position. The territory is going to be a little bit different than we posted because of where the people that we're bringing on board are located, but we want you to cover kind of the Northeast and a little bit of the Midwest, and then Canada, which is obviously a ginormous territory. But at this point, I mean, you could have told me that I was covering the moon. I would have did it. So they, after a couple more interviews, going through the process, Chris called me up and said, "Hey, I want to extend the offer to you." And I kid you not, I remember this. I was driving down to the gym to get a little workout in, and I just sat in the car in just disbelief that after just about 10 years, someone's finally given me the opportunity to get into the golf world. I told some of the interviews that I'd done in the past when I got to that point with other companies, once it got to the point where I didn't have the industry experience, you could kind of tell when someone's energy changes and all of a sudden they're just not into it anymore. And I actually said to somebody, and I'm not going to name the company, but I told them, I said, "Look, I'm going to get into the golf business, and I'm going to either sell for you or against you, and you don't want me to sell against you." And then I hung up the phone.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wilson hated that one call.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that came from just me being frustrated. It was an interesting thing to say in the moment, but it was honest, and that's how I felt. And I was just frustrated because I'm like, this is crazy. Like I could go in here and crush it, and they're just not willing to give me the opportunity because I don't have the golf experience. But I mean, how do you get the experience if nobody ever gives you the shot, right? It's kind of the chicken or the egg. So when I got the offer from Edel and Chris called me, that was a moment for me. I mean, that was almost 10 years of pursuing this industry, going to countless PGA shows on my own dime, walking that floor every day, just meeting everybody I could possibly meet, giving my number, my email. It was a long time. I mean, it was a lot of work, and honestly, I was close to giving up because I mean, life moves on. I had a family. I had more. I have 3 kids, so I had another child in that whole time, and you start getting older with more responsibilities, and you're like, I knew to get into golf, I'd have to take a little bit of a step back and kind of start from the bottom and work my way up. And that was going to be a conversation I knew I was going to have with my wife if I got my opportunity. And fortunately, my wife is amazing in a sense that she's always been supportive of me and just says, "Hey, look, the money will be there, and I believe in you, and I believe you'll get back to where we need to be financially. You just need to get into the business." So, all kudos to her. I wouldn't be here without her.
Yeah, that's great support. You really need that. So that's awesome to hear.
Must have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it meant a lot to me, and for her to just say, "Hey, look, we'll do whatever we have to do because if we're going to make a bet, I'll bet on you any day." And I feel the same way about her. So that was, I'm lucky in that regard. I'm super lucky. So, yeah, so I got the opportunity and it just changed my life. I mean, I sat in my car and I didn't even know what to do. I just sat there for 5 minutes and just was in shock after all that time, because again, I was close to just giving up and saying, all right, you know what, maybe that's just not my path. And maybe I was just meant to do some cool things and have some cool experiences. And that was it for me.
Did you work out or did you go home?
No, I had to go work out because I was buzzing. I was bouncing off the wall. So
I would have headed to the bar.
What's that?
I would have gone to the bar.
When I got home, I had some drinks. Believe me.
Okay.
that was going to happen. But yeah, I went in and
Justin, congrats on having a ride or die woman, by the way.
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah,
It's the key to life. That's the key to life.
It is. You don't realize how much you need that support until you're in a position where you're just down and out and you're ready to just kind of throw in the towel. And for that person to kind of pick you up and say, hey, you know, keep going. You got this. You know, it's meant to be. It'll happen. Yeah, that's super important.
And I'm sure leading into that moment, I mean, you've had to have some really tough conversations with her just about what you were going to continue to do and how you were going to approach this. And I'm sure, like you said, you were ready to, you know, call it a quits and, you know, just move on from golf. And I'm sure you guys already had that conversation as well. And, you know, so for her, I'm sure her emotions were just as high as your emotions when you found out. And that's awesome, man. I mean, you really don't. It's hard to find those experiences in life, and I'm happy to hear that you got that and shared that with your wife. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of tears. You know, it was a lot of hard work and perseverance, and you know, I mean, I got to the point where the last 2 years before I got in this position or the opportunity with Edel, where I didn't go to the show anymore because, I mean, after a while, I can't keep asking my wife, like, hey, is it cool that I spend a couple grand to go to Orlando in the wintertime and you manage the kids and I'm spending a couple grand of our family money? You know what I mean? Like it got to the point where I just didn't even ask anymore because it came across as selfish. So yeah, there was a lot of tears and there was a lot of, you know, just thanking, you know, the good Lord above that we stayed on the path. And, you know, and honestly, it was really important for me to share that with my kids more than anybody, because I wanted them to see what hard work and grit and discipline can achieve. You know, if you don't give up and you hang in there and you keep working, it might take a decade, but guess what? You will get there, you know? And the share. Go ahead.
I was taught. It's funny when you were saying that. I was thinking along those same lines. I tell my kids all the time, not that there's no luck, but a lot of luck is really just a combination of hard work and timing aligning. And if you keep grinding and you keep doing the things that you need to do to achieve the things that you want to achieve, you know, it'll align. And your story is perfect for it, right? I mean, all the money, the time that you invested, how out of your way, how inconvenienced you had to put yourself in your life, just for not really even a shot, just to maybe create a shot.
Yeah.
And, you know, 10 years later, there it is. So I think, yeah, you can't harp on that enough, from my perspective, because more people need that. More people need to understand with the world of instant gratification and seeing things, and you see Justin is like, oh, well, he's at Edel Golf. He's set, right? He's there. They don't see the story and the grind that happened to get there. They just think that it just happened. So that's a beautiful manifestation of that grind.
Yeah, it is in hindsight. You know, you look back and you can. I appreciate everything I went through, and it prepared me for what. And I look back and I realize why it had to happen the way that it did, because that whole time in the medical world, I was learning a lot of skills that apply to golf, and I was able to bring a fresh perspective to a golf company, and it turned into a big asset for them, because I brought that perspective because I hadn't been in golf before. So it was a positive. They looked at it as a positive, where other companies looked at it as a negative. And, you know, I started doing sales for Edel, and, you know, a year and a half into it, they promoted me up to director of sales. So I guess they thought I'd been doing a great job. So for all those companies that didn't want to hire me, you know, sorry.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, right. Sorry is right.
Yeah, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was something really important for me to share with my kids, and it was great to teach them some lessons, to say, you know, look how happy I am. Look what I'm doing now. I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, and I'm able to make a living and put food on the table doing it. I want the same for you, but I don't want you to have to wait 20 years to do it. I want you to be able to go to school, get your education, whatever your interest is, and I want you to start your life out that way. I don't want you to have to travel down the same path and wait and wait and wait. You have some opportunities at a younger age that I didn't have, and I want you to pursue your passion because I'm a firm believer that you can excel at a lot of different things, but if you're passionate about something, man, it makes that a lot easier.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there's something that you said earlier. There's something about the grind.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some guys coming in hitting some good balls at the Clubhouse 54.
Golfing
Nice.
at Clubhouse.
But something to,
Dells.
We got him right here.
There you go.
but something to respect the grind. You went through what you went through to get to the position that you're in. That's not. There's a reason for that. There's for somebody like myself that's in the business, I'm grinding to try to get forward, in the PGM program, but I'm having to continue to grind. But I respect it because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
And if it was easy, I wouldn't have to grind. And there's something that I respect about people that, keep their head down and just keep going for it. And it's going to pay off, and it's paid off for you. You can sit here and tell us that it has because, I can see it in you. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that part's the most beautiful part to me, right? It's the hike up the mountain. And yes, you get to enjoy that view, but you enjoy the view because you busted your ass getting there. And guess what? Once the view's over, you got to climb back down and you got to figure it out and go do it again. But really enjoying, like embracing that grind as you're doing it is what's going to get you there. Not trying to avoid it. It's that's the
and
route.
It's hard to respect somebody to be like, yeah, no, I grew up, I just did this, I joined this, I moved up the ladder, I'm VP this, I'm this, and it's like, how long did it take you? 6 months. And it's like, well, your daddy's somebody.
And I felt that way a lot in school when a lot of my friends that were in sport management, they were getting internships at like the Camden Yards or with the Phillies or something like that, doing ticket sales, but they were unpaid, right? But they could do that because, they were fortunately in a position where their expenses and bills and it was covered for them. And look, I'm not hating on them. Like hey, good for them, but I just didn't have that same opportunity. And I was jaded, it made me angry. It was like, man, I feel like I'm so far behind and I'm at such a disadvantage, especially in the sports world, because they are hard to get jobs and there's not very many of them. I mean, there's only so many golf companies, right? I mean, think about that. It's tough. And typically what I found out was once people get into the business, especially on the manufacturer side, they don't leave very often, so those spots don't open up as often.
Some should leave. I mean, I'm not being rude, but I'm just saying I'm in the business and I've seen my share of reps. There are probably 3 reps that I would say right now that are the best at what they do in this area. And the rest are kind of just like trying to peddle you stuff. And, it's hard, it would be hard for me to not sit you down in an interview, and not an interview, but if you were coming to pitch at Edel to me, it would be hard for me not to sit here and talk to you because you've got some pizzazz to you. I'm not hitting on you, but you got something going on there, Justin.
He's hitting on you.
So look, I'll give you my number when we're done. We can go. I'll let you buy me dinner.
My first conversation with Justin, I'm like, all right, this guy gets it. Like, this is easy. Take my money. Like, just here it is. He calls me now. He's like, Mike, I got something new for you to get. Okay, done. Like, he doesn't even have to explain it to me because I trust him that much about it. And,
and so there's something to be said about that.
Of course. So now you have 4 sales reps on your list now.
4 sales reps. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go,
So
Edel.
that's right. Edel, add it to the list. So, but I think probably the reps that you like the most and that you think do the best job, it's probably because they're just passionate. They love what they do. They love the game. And I don't look, there's a lot of people out there that do jobs because they got to put food on the table and, hey, do what you got to do out there. No judgment from me. And just because they're in golf doesn't necessarily mean that they're passionate about the game. It might just be they fell into a job. And that's fine, but I think that's what separates people, and that's the message that I tried to share with my children, and I still do, obviously, is you see the difference in me, between what I was doing, the struggle that I went through, the pursuit that I went through, and then now that I finally achieved what I was trying to, or at least achieved getting into the business, you can see what that's done for me. So I want the same for you. And yeah, I think it really comes down to what we're talking about is grit, is just grinding it out in the trenches and crawling through the mud and just not letting people tell you no, or not giving up because they tell you no. Because I got, look, when you're facing 9-10 years of just a lot of rejection, that's not easy. You take a lot of shots in there. And fortunately in sales, a lot of people end up thinking of salespeople as like the used car salesman, right? Where you're going to spin some, you're going to BS your way to a deal and try to sell them a lemon. Honestly, I've never been lied to more since I've been in sales. I don't lie to people. They lie to me. And it's just, and what
So
that
true.
does.
That is so true. I hope I'm not one of those people.
It is true, right?
That is so true. That is so true.
And what I found was there was something to be gained from that, though. And for me, it built a really thick layer of skin. So it prepared me to handle all that rejection and not take it personally. So, there's even in rejection, even when someone is, giving you a hard time, there's something that you can gain from that. If you want it to be, you can turn it into something positive and benefit from it if you have the right mindset. And sales has taught me that. And whether it's medical, whether it was, when I was doing training, whether it's golf, if Edel's not the right fit for a customer today or an account, I'll be honest with them. The first thing I want to do is I want to understand your business. And is this a good fit for you? Is it a good fit for us? And if I don't have the right solution for you, I'll say it. I'll tell you.
And that's something that we don't hear a lot as, people that are in the businesses. We don't get their honest truth. It's like, hey, we'll sell you this, 6 of this, 6 of this, 7 of this. And it's like, we don't get the truth out of them. And I take that back. We get the truth out of most of them. I don't want to say anything bad about, some of the reps out there. But like you say, giving us if you don't have an honest answer, if it's not a perfect fit, say it. Don't just try to peddle it on us.
Well, a lot of it is, they'll come in and they'll say, if you buy X, we'll give you Y. Like that's what we hear a lot of, where that was not the pitch with Edel Golf at all. It wasn't even close to that. It was more of, okay, is what you're trying to accomplish, what we're looking for. And, and do we have what you're looking for? Is this a mutual agreement? Is this at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is this going to be a good fit for both parties involved? Not just us as a company. So that was, that right then and there, that's when I'm like, sold, I'm done. Like you don't even have to tell me about the product, just send it to me and I'll read about it. I don't want you to have to do any more work, like, thank you for being that way, and it's great to see. And you can tell that a lot of that, for at least what I could tell, was it was you, right? Like, even if the company was or wasn't that way, that's how you sold it to me, but you was in a very honest way. Yeah, because you believe in that product and have such a big passion for it, and it was very obvious. It's obvious why Callaway brought you out there, to go through that process. It's obvious why they, sent you to Las Vegas. It's pretty clear to me. It's very inspiring as well. So for me, when I do my next venture, I'm calling you and saying, hey, what do you think of this? And bouncing ideas off of you knowing everything that you went through, and seeing how I can learn more from you as a person, and as a businessman. So thank you.
I'm always looking for business opportunities, Mike.
Justin, do you guys have any guys on tour playing your product?
We have play on tour on PGA, on LPGA. We don't pay anybody, so we can't use name and likeness, but we do. We plan on changing that in the next kind of year, 1 to 2 years. So we're talking to different agents now. We have, the new SMS pros out to some tour players doing testing. So we're getting there. Edel has kind of evolved as a brand, where when David Edel started the company, he'd be the first person to tell you, business is not his big interest, right? He loves product design. He loves teaching and instruction. So he always kind of kept the company at a level that was manageable for him, and Edel was always known for our custom putters and, hand ground wedges. But the company in the last few years was bought by Doug Kors, who, Doug came and brought a lot of resources and saw a lot of potential with Edel and said, we're going to grow this brand out to be much more mainstream instead of staying in the niche space. And when they made that decision, that's when they started bringing people like myself on to say, hey, we want to grow this company out. We're going to be developing this whole new line of products, single length irons. A lot of people know us from like Bryson DeChambeau played single length Edel irons. He worked, David worked with him since he was about 11. And that's what he won his NCAAs with, his U.S. amateur. And they had a really great relationship together until he signed his deal with Cobra, which, that's reasonable. You get on the PGA Tour, you sign a big contract.
But with Cobra, I mean, come on.
Well, they were going to make the single length for him,
I mean, anybody would have done. I think anybody would, if he would have said, "Hey, I want you to do single length." I think pretty much most companies out there would. I mean, unless they just don't want to be fools. But
I mean, he was also a little bit of an, he was an accomplished amateur, but he wasn't a superstar yet. You know what I mean? So there's companies that said, hey, we got a huge roster of players. Why bend over backwards, for this kid, right? And so I think I get that. But so single length was always a big part of Edel. We recently kind of started to move in a different direction just because single length, it never caught on the way that we hoped. When you think about Bryson now, who's the only player out there using them, do you think of his irons or do you think of him hitting a 450-yard drive?
I think of him actually spraying or having his caddy spray water on his ball in the morning so he can demonstrate what the dew is going to be like because he's got a morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Putting the balls in salt water.
Stuff I've ever seen ever in golf. It tops the list, man.
But that's golf for you, right? If you think it benefits you and if you think it works, it does, right? Yep. It's so mental.
It really is.
You won't ever catch me spraying dew on my ball. I mean, I'm just good. It's going to happen. Whatever happens, happens.
So you don't put all your balls in like a saline solution to find the center. You don't do that?
No, just Vaseline.
Drew plays for a 6-pack of High Noon, not millions of dollars.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
You go.
I got $23 on the line.
Hey, you got, you're playing for that cash. But so one of the benefits, again, is like Mike, what you were saying is when we first had our conversations, it's really about, is this a good fit for both of us? And the reason that we can come from that place is because we're owned by one person. We're not owned by an investment group. We're not a publicly traded company. And not that there's something wrong with that. I mean, that's just a different business model. But when you are accountable to investment groups and stock, the stock traders, you have to make decisions differently. When it's one person that owns us, and Doug, by the way, is an absolute golf fanatic. I mean, you go out to his club out in Denver, where our headquarters is now, and I mean, he'll fit players. He's perfectly fine getting in the trenches and doing that, and I love that about him. but he loves golf and he loves the game. And his philosophy is, I just want to make the absolute best products possible. And if that means that we don't bring an iron out every year, then that's what happens. You know, we're not going to be replacing our equipment every year because we can't improve it that much in 12 months.
Yeah.
And
I really do respect that.
Yeah, well, we can. One of the benefits of being owned by one person is we can make decisions like that. You know, we can replace our irons every 3-4 years. We can replace putters every 3-4. You know, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years, but we have that option. We're not constantly coming to guys like yourself, our accounts out there, and saying, "Hey, you got to take in all this new product," right?
Yeah.
Because then you're like, "All right, well, how do we do buybacks and how do we clear out this old stock?" We're not doing that. So that's an advantage for us being a little bit of a smaller brand.
Right. It's not profit driven, it's passion driven.
Yeah, I mean, we're a business. We want to make a profit for sure, but it's passion is first and foremost. We got to keep the lights on and the doors open, and we want to do a good business because, the more profitable we are, the more innovative we can be. But it's all coming from a place of passion, and we all truly believe that the product we're putting out is the best that we can provide, the best that we can do.
Yeah.
We're not cutting corners. We're not, we're not sitting there focusing on, well, what is this going to do to our share price?
Right.
And again, nothing wrong with that, but there's some pros and cons to the big companies, and there's some pros and cons to being a smaller company. We can maneuver and adjust pretty quickly. Whereas a larger company, it takes a little bit more time to pivot. So there's some cool perks to that.
Where are most of the products made?
I mean, it depends. I mean, Asia, forging houses, and then everything is assembled here in the States at our Austin facility or in Denver, which is our new operations and assembly. Basically, our headquarters moved out there. And then Austin is now, there's fitting studios in Austin as well as our R&D machine shop where we do all of our limited run putters, things like that.
Do you guys have a robot?
We have
the legitimate question.
We have a putter.
They have a robot that hits golf balls,
like a swing robot.
Yeah, like an actual robot that hits the clubs.
Okay, all right.
Like
It's a lot of robots.
I'm not like asking. If
I thought you meant are the robots making the
clubs.
clubs?
I wasn't talking about C3PO or anything like that. Or I was asking.
Well, we have Chat GPT that the AI makes all our stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's easy.
So
But no, we don't have a in-house swing robot. We do have a putter robot to test putters and toe hangs and all that stuff. But for full swing, we work with a third party for that, independent, which a lot of people work with this group. So we do all our testing through third party. It probably wouldn't be cost effective right now for us to do that in-house. But possibly in the future, when we're looking at possibly developing like a performance center of our own maybe in a few years, we already have the land to do it, but maybe once that's in play, then it makes sense, but we'll see.
Nice. I love your story, Justin. Really do. What advice would you have for anyone looking to get into the business or follow in your footsteps?
I mean, honestly, I would say don't give up. Network like crazy. It's a lot of people say it's who you know, right? I'm sure you guys have all heard that saying a million times, but is that true? Yeah, but I believe it's who you know, but even more importantly, it's who knows you. You can say a lot of people out there, but if they don't know you, it doesn't matter, right? There's no relationship there. And I would say, that the key to getting into golf or sports in general, it really is networking. It is trying to find a cracked door or a window that's slightly open for you to climb through, or just give your business card to somebody. Any way that you can meet people in the business that you want to be in, you're going to have a much better chance of succeeding. Basically hang around with what you envision for yourself. Hang out with those sorts of people. The PGA show is another great opportunity. I think if you can manage to, the way that I got in a lot of years was PGA members can have guests. So I would go with our local pros and they would add me in as a guest for them. And I would go down there and look for stuff for my club. So I was kind of pulling double duty. But just getting into that show, you can meet a lot of people. The who's who is down there. And just go up and shake their hand and don't be afraid to talk to people. You got to be social. If you're an introvert, you got to just force yourself to go up and look somebody in the eyes and shake their hand and introduce yourself. And don't be afraid to sell yourself and be confident. That can be a really big challenge when you're trying to get into something new. To come across as confident is it can be tough, but you need to make sure that they realize you believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, they're not going to believe in you. It's that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I was actually down at the PGA show a couple of weeks ago, and you were there as well. And how about the energy that was at the PGA show this year? I mean, it was awesome. I met so many great people there this year.
Yeah, it was nice to see that it's bouncing back after COVID for sure. It's a long week. I mean, it's a lot of walking, and your feet are hurting at the end of the day, and that's where you go to those dinners and you have some drinks, Drew. You start drinking some margaritas.
Well, unless you step into the Callaway booth where they've got the premium carpet, you can walk around there and your feet feel great. It's weird because you go down to the show and you have some people that have really good carpet and you're on it and you're like, man, I want to hang out here for a while. Then you go to some other booth and you're like, man, my feet hurt. I got to get out of here.
I try to go over.
That's when you go to like the Theragun and Hypervice booths, and then you work the muscles real quick with the demo massagers.
Oh yeah, the Theragun goes on the feet.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh yeah,
right in those arches.
Yeah,
yeah, no, not for me.
I got you after that.
They have these things called these like air boots that you put on.
I've seen them. I've seen those.
What are those?
I tried them. They're amazing. I mean, imagine you're putting a boot that comes like way up your leg. I mean, all the way up to like your mid thigh.
How far up?
Like your mid thigh, right?
It's trouble. All right.
Yeah. Go on. If you want, I can show you exactly on me now. So basically, these boots inflate with air and create this. I don't know how it exactly works, but it's like a blood pressure cuff for your entire leg.
Yeah.
And it kind of it inflates and it deflates and inflates, and it kind of works the blood up and down your leg, your circulation. And when you take them off after like 12 minutes, it's amazing. I mean, I was like, wow, these are like a game changer.
What are they called?
I don't know exact name for them. I tried.
We're not even going to say their name. Maybe they'll sponsor.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah,
no, we're not name dropping anybody else tonight.
Theragun. That company has their version of the boots. Hypervice has their version of the boots.
Right.
So they both have them. I think I tried the Theragun ones, but no, they were great. So I need those at the show.
So what goals do you have then for 2023? Now that you're, director of sales here with Edel Golf, and looks like your future is extremely bright here. So curious.
Honestly, for 2023, my goal and the company's goals are just really to launch the SMS Pro, which it's coming out in another, what date is it? Next week already, the 23rd. So that's a big deal for us. The response we've gotten from the Pro Iron has been tremendous, as well as the SMS Iron, which this is, when we released the SMS Iron, that was late August, which is not an ideal time to launch a product, but we were dealing with supply chain issues like everybody else. So it was just the best that we could do. So this will be the first spring for the SMS Iron as well. So we're just excited to get these irons out into the market that are not single length. We're just excited to get back on people's radar and to get back in players' bags. And we believe we've created something that nobody else can touch in terms of, we took the technology that a lot of drivers have, right, through adjustability with weighting, and we've implemented that into irons. So the way that we look at it is, again, a little different from a lot of companies in a sense that we want to improve your miss. You know, your best, your perfect shot is already perfect, right? We can't improve that very much. The only way we could is if we strengthen lofts and we did some smoke and mirrors where, oh, you're getting another 6 yards, but really you're not hitting a 7-iron, you're hitting a 6-iron. You know, you can take that approach and that's fine. But for us, we're all about, we want to be masters of aim and speed with putting, and we want to be the masters of dispersion with our other products in terms of wedges and irons. So we believe we come at it from a slightly different viewpoint where if we can improve your miss, we're actually going to make you a better player. Because if you and I play and my misses are better than your misses, I'm going to have a better chance of beating you that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Every time.
And, you know, especially with irons and wedges, those are clubs meant to hit a target. And that's, you know, through our adjustable SMS weights, we can actually help control the closure rate of the iron, just like you do in a driver. And, you know, if you're missing it to the right, we can move weight and create more of a heel bias. And we can get that going back, you know, curving back towards the target, help you close the face, the path a little bit, and vice versa. So that's really the focus for us. And the goal is to just, we are so excited for these irons to get them out into the marketplace. And to be honest, 23 is a big year for us and for me personally, in just really getting our hands wrapped around our growth potential and where we're going as a company. And for me, you know, being new into the director position, I have a lot to learn. I love learning from people. I love asking questions. If you ever ask me something and I don't know the answer, I'm not going to make it up. I'm just going to say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you, and I will get back to you. You know, for me,
Give me 3 left-handed wedges.
I'll get back to you when we release left-handed stuff. Yes. So yeah, lefty stuff is something that we certainly want to put back into our mix in the future. But again, we're kind of reinventing the company. You know, we really just took it down to bare bones, and we said, okay, how do we want to evolve? How do we want to grow? And that meant, unfortunately, we had to make some tough decisions like, hey, right now, let's not take the cost on for lefty stuff. Instead, let's take that money and put it towards hiring another engineer or doing something like that to support future growth so that we can start offering lefty stuff.
As much as I like to hear that, I mean, it's.
Hey, man, not everybody believes in lefties.
You're on the wrong side of the ball, Joe.
Should stand on the right side.
Well, I believe someone that we were interviewing now had a very nice interaction with a lefty, and you know, I would think that would go a little bit further than it has.
Well, we have some of the irons and wedges here. I'm pumped to hit them. I'm gonna flip a couple around and hit some lefty though too.
And that's when I leave the building.
Yeah.
Well,
I was gonna save this till the end, but the putter fitting system from Edel Golf is unbelievable. It is the best on the market.
Do you have it here?
I have it here. You see that little box behind me?
That right there.
That's it right there. There it is.
Let's do it.
Has everything in there. It's awesome. And
box of dreams right there.
So I went through.
How do I get a box? I want one of those boxes.
Don't look at me.
I can sell you one. Easy.
I don't want a free one.
$4.99. You can have
buy
it.
a box.
I'll ship it out plus shipping.
We just
3
gotta figure
easy
out-
payments, right? 3 easy payments.
I will buy it. We just have to figure out how to tell my wife and what the hell's in it. So let's get one.
It's a construction box. Like,
Yeah, it's tools.
Yeah, it's for tools.
toolbox.
Yeah,
Look, I went through the whole fitting with Justin on the irons, wedges, and the putter. I mean, absolute amazing experience. And I'm happy now that I can provide that experience to everyone that comes here. So
Let's do it.
and we'll do it with you. It's awesome. It's so good.
And that's really a big selling point for us is, you know, we do look at things a little differently from other companies, in a sense that we want to create a better miss. You know, realistically, I could give you any club from any player's bag, and if you hit it in the center of the face, you're going to have a good outcome. What separates equipment is what happens when you don't hit it in the center. And unfortunately, most of us don't hit it in the center the majority of the time. So, you know, what you just said, Mike, was all about the experience, you know, and the experience that you had when I came down and took you through some of the products. And that's something that we want you to be able to offer to a player when they come in is we love the fact that you can give them a unique experience that they're not used to having. They're not used to having all those options for a putter. They're not used to having movable weight in an iron, right? These are things that tour players have had access to for a long, long time. They've been moving weight around in irons for years, but they chrome over it and they put tungsten in different places, and we don't see that. But they're tour players, so they can have that customized. Companies are willing to do that for them. But if you or I call up Callaway or Titleist or whoever and say, "Hey, I'm Justin Minisci. I want my irons to be 6 grams in the toe," they're gonna laugh, right, and hang up the phone. So
go buy some lead tape.
Yeah, go buy some lead tape or put some tungsten powder down the hosel, whatever it is. So we just love that we can give our partners like yourself the ability to create unique experiences for players so that it reassures them why they came to see you to get fit and they didn't maybe go somewhere else that didn't have that product.
Yeah, makes sense. I love it. Love what you guys are doing. Love
Awesome.
it. Thank you what you're doing for the game of golf, really. I mean, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Well, I appreciate what the game of golf has done for me, so I'm all in.
Yeah, I respect the hustle, man. There's so many people out there that just would, after 2 or 3 years, just give up.
Yeah.
But you've seemed to, like I said, grind it out, and look what it's done for you. And you have a story to tell, and that story could be so beneficial to other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it is to me.
Big time.
Like, you don't get those lefty clubs, keep grinding it out. You'll get them.
No, I'll just continue to hit my Callaway one.
Hold on. So, Drew, you're going to like this. So, are we the first podcast to interview you?
No. I mean, in terms of, hold on.
To hear your story.
The complete story? Possibly. I've done some Golf WRX podcasts. I've done some other stuff, but this is the first podcast that I've done where I think I've shared everything from start to finish. Yes.
Listen, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's been an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the other ones were talking about just the trip or just in Vegas or, stuff like that. But this is the first one I've done where I've literally went through how it started and how it's going now, for sure.
That's great.
Awesome.
So
that's all.
Yeah, I appreciate, your time, and I appreciate you having me on. And if anything that I said helps somebody, I mean, that's amazing to me, because to hear words of encouragement or people that were in the business say certain things to me, like, "Hey, don't give up, like, you'll get your shot." And there was a lot of people that helped me along the way, which, like a Harry Arnett, like Chris Koski, I'm super grateful to those guys, and I always will be, because maybe it didn't always pan out it didn't turn out turn into a job, but they were there to help me, and they got me an interview, or they passed my resume along. So there's people that will help you, but you have to ask. You have to be willing to say, "I need help. Will you help me?" And I believe the majority of people out there really enjoy and get a lot of gratification out of helping people. Yeah. And most people will say, "Yeah, I'll help you out." You just got to ask.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like all of us have mentors, right? It's like you say, you got to ask, though, in order for them to become your mentor. And, I know I have a lot that I'm grateful for, and hopefully, you can be my mentor moving forward on a few things that, I'm going to pick your brain about. So,
vice versa.
I love it. So we do a rapid fire here. We're going to ask you a few questions, and just getting your answers here, and just going to wrap up. So your favorite golf course or club?
My favorite golf course, I would say, that I played would be Congressional.
Thank God he didn't say East Lake.
Drew has beef there. We won't go back into that.
And hey, Drew, by the way, I am a left-handed person, but I play golf right-handed because I learned the right way.
What do you mean you learned the right way? That just means you stood in a mirror and you just did that.
That's Justin. Same here. I don't meet many of my kind.
I mean,
my son's left-handed, but he's going to learn how to play right-handed.
The correct way, the right way.
I'm just going to start pronouncing your name Justin Minisci.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I apologize then. Apologies.
Okay, all right, good. We're good. All good.
I
Love it.
appreciate that.
I love it. Favorite golf club to use?
8-iron.
Any right-handed club.
I like that. I like that answer.
That's my favorite too.
8-iron. Because a lot of people say putter, and it's like, no, your putter's really not your.
You could do a lot with an 8, man.
You really
Yes.
can. Favorite golf hole?
16 at Augusta.
Bucket list golf course or area to play?
Oh man, I would say Pine Valley.
Okay. Best round and where?
At my home club, 65.
He is a stick. See, he's trying to say he's a scratch golfer. He's better than scratch.
Yeah.
Well,
He
if there's
said
money
give
on
or
the
take.
line, I don't
If he
want to.
said give or take.
Give or take.
If you say give or take after scratch golfer, you're definitely a plus.
Well, the thing is you say you're a plus handicap to most players or like, normal, weekend golfers. And they think you're like they think that's plus over par.
Right, right.
So I just say I'm scratch, and everyone at my club, whether you're a +4 or +2, everyone just plays as a scratch. There's no strokes. You just go out and play.
I like that.
I like that too. That's my
I
kind of
like
golf. Favorite halfway house snack?
Oh, it's got to be the dog. I mean, give me the hot dog. A good beef hot dog, man.
Nice.
Shove a pork missile in my mouth.
Like, is it the regular sized dog? Or is
No, the big one, the jumbo dogs.
Well, what do you
the
put on it?
Lizzie.
What do you put on it?
Just mustard.
Right.
And the roll matters. The roll
Yes.
matters.
Yes, it does.
I'll tell you something. This is just a little story. I played Stream Song over back in August,
Oh, nice.
and I think it's at the Turn. They have a taco shack,
Ooh.
so they make you tacos at the Turn instead of being a hot dog or anything like that.
Can you put a dog in a taco?
Who would do that? Chop up a taco? I mean, come on. This is
Maybe you just invented something.
no, but it is the coolest thing to know that you can go when you make the turn, you're getting tacos.
Where was this at?
Stream Song.
If I make the turn and I start crushing tacos, I might not make the back nine. I mean,
Yep.
Mexican's one of my favorite foods. So
Oh, I
That's dangerous.
crushed a couple White Claws, and the guy that I was playing, the guy that actually paid for it, was just looking over at me, and I was just like, "I'm having fun. I'm having fun." He was like, "Have your fun."
This is a question from Drew. Favorite on-course cocktail?
Bloody Mary.
That's a good
Come on,
It
dude.
is a good
No,
one.
that's a good
Nah, it's a great
That's a
golf.
good
It's a great
starter.
golf
That's
drink.
a good starter, but like,
He didn't say
what?
when. He probably plays early. Old
Yeah, he plays
Yeah.
at 6 in the morning.
guy's got to work.
Yeah.
Man,
It's dark out when he starts.
that's thick.
That's a good one.
That is a good
Listen
one.
to him.
I don't drink on the course.
So
He would only say
judgmental,
new-
Drew. My God.
Drew
So
would only
judgmental.
say Nooners or White Claws.
You know?
Or some kind of vodka sweet tea or something.
Vodka sweet tea.
Yeah, something
There's
that
got to
Well,
be sweet tea in there.
I mean, if it's after the round or mid round, then John Daly. That would be my go-to. But
Yeah.
normally
There you
the
go.
Bloody Mary is I enjoy that in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little meat to it, you know?
Yeah, it's breakfast.
Yeah.
it's got a little meat to it. I'm sure it does.
Hey, guess what?
I'm sure it does, Justin.
You can
I'm
put a
really
hot
sure it
dog in a
does.
Bloody Mary.
That is, you can put that not in. That's gross.
Last and final question. Dream foursome can be dead or alive.
Oh man, I would probably say my dad, Tiger Woods, and Bo Jackson.
Nice.
Bo's a good one.
Dude, Bo's probably not hitting it more than 100 yards off the tee.
You're
Bo
insane.
smashes it.
Dude, you're insane. Bo knows.
I work with a club where he belongs, and I know per that works with him, and Bo brings some heat.
How does he bring his heat when he can't turn his hip? Like where's his action coming from?
Because he could lift a house. You know, he can be all arms and still probably swing at 120 miles an hour.
Left-handed.
I'm telling you, I grew up in the Bo Jackson era. I don't think he could lift a house right now, but I would love to see him hit a golf ball, and I hope he hits it far, and I hope he plays well.
YouTube, Joe.
Very
YouTube.
positive. Very positive.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I want to end on a positive note so people don't think that I'm just negative Nelly over
It
here.
seemed forced, if I'm being honest.
It wasn't forced. It felt very genuine. It came deep.
It
I'm just
did.
trying to figure out that shirt you're wearing.
Dude, come on.
That shirt fucked me up when I walked in. I'm gonna be honest.
I mean, just because I have fashion doesn't mean anything. I have fashion. I'm okay with that.
That matches your
You
Hungry
just wanted
can.
to match the Nooners.
Well, I'm just glad they make that shirt in a left-handed size.
It does actually kind of match.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure getting to know you more. Hearing your story, very inspirational to all of us and all of our listeners. And, we can't thank you enough for sharing it with us. And, I look forward to continuing to work with you and look forward to continuing to represent Edel Golf and help out the golfers around here at Clubhouse 54. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your guys' time and thank you for having me on to let me share my story. I never really, to be honest, talked about it from start to finish. And it's still amazing to me that I hung in there, to be honest with you. I mean, it was a long time. So it was a pleasure to be on, and I definitely look forward to working with more, Clubhouse 54 and to see how you guys grow and however we can support you, we'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, we'll be back again next week. Next week, we're actually going to discuss some other things. We're not going to have a guest with us, but we're going to talk about our experiences at our clubs and when we go out to play golf and just share some stories with that. So we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Once again, Justin Minisci with Edel Golf. Thank you so much.
Let's go hit some Edel clubs.
There we go.
Absolutely. There you go.
There's no lefties.